Ladies, gentlemen, and our friends beyond the binary, my name is DeRay, and I am here with another episode of The Wise Build Bridges, a podcast brought to you by Viaduct Generation, the growth partner for purpose-driven e-commerce brands. Martin, I am very happy to have you with us here. For our listeners that don't know who you are, please tell us, Martin, who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, DeRay. My name's Martin Ives, and I work for the social investment business, and the position I hold there is marketing manager.
And what does the social investment business do?
The social investment business has been running now for about just over 20 years, and it provides finance and resilience training, mentorship to social enterprises and charities.
And how long have you worked there now?
I'm coming up for 3 years now. I started in November 2022.
And tell me some of your proudest moments about being there. What are some of the things that have that you carry on with a little silent fist bump in your desk?
So the amount of funding that we've delivered in my tenure here is astonishing, really. We successfully delivered in partnership with government the Youth Investment Fund, which provided over £300 million to various youth projects around the country. What the funding allowed them to do was renovate their buildings so they're fit for purpose for years to come, or in some cases completely rebuild their whole buildings and extend their provision and be able to offer greater facilities for the young people around the country.
Amazing. You said many youth projects there. Can you give us some kind of just a breakdown for those that aren't fully aware? Like myself, I'm from South Africa, so we don't really have these kind of youth projects that many of them. Can you tell me a little bit more about what a good example of one and maybe the people that are benefiting from this fundraising and training that you guys offer?
Sure, absolutely. So what defines a youth project? It's quite a broad spectrum. So it could be, say, for example, scouting groups, that sort of thing. Could also be YMCAs, traditional youth centres. There's a lot of different things. Some boxing clubs that have extended provision for things that help young people to sort of basically learn how to grow up in the right kind of way. It offers things like counselling, whereas other youth projects could have extended their provision and had like a recording studio, or had like a climbing wall put up or anything like that, just to make it a sort of rounded experience for the young people that get to use the centres. The main thing about the centres as well is they're all open access provision, so anyone could walk in from the street. There might be a fee associated with it, but basically any young person could go in and use the facilities.
That's awesome, Martin. Well, it's great to see the social investment business making such a positive difference to the world, and we're all about amplifying businesses doing that. I love the header on your website says finance and support for a more equal society, and I think that's a fantastic cause to put your day-to-day work behind. A lot of people on this podcast have kind of really targeted goals in terms of acquisition, and I know that you've got a vast experience both on the B2C and a B2B side. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that we should be, and marketeers should be, paying more attention to as the market is adapting?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think in terms of acquisition, something that I've learned over the course of many years of marketing experience, that you should look at providing almost like a 360 kind of wraparound for customers that you have. Historically, a lot of businesses are driven by new customer acquisition, and although that is good, oftentimes it's like you clutch up these customers and then discard them as soon as you've extracted value from them. An analogy I would use is customers are almost like water, in the sense that if you're thirsty, you would go into a shop, buy a bottle of water, drink it, throw the bottle away. But if you carry a bottle with you, a reusable bottle with water in it, you can have water whenever you want. So if you provide a good service for customers, not just at the point of entry, but also bring them along with the journey and look at the life cycle of the customer, I feel that's better for the customer. It gives them a better impression of your organisation, but also it just means that you can intervene, help them, whatever stage of the journey they're on.
I sometimes feel like marketeers are constantly, and sometimes to an extent exclusively, driven, OKR'd, KPI'd, whatever you targeted on acquisition, and it feels like marketing's job stops once the client signs on the dotted line. I think what you're referring to here is say, sorry marketeers, that's not the case. Marketing exists beyond that. Can you tell me maybe how you see the role of marketing beyond, let's say, the sale or beyond the extraction of first value.
Sure. I think marketing really is the sort of public face of any organisation. So you really need to almost present the company in a number of different facets. It's not just at the point of acquisition, it's about the lifetime as well. So ensuring that people are given relevant information at the right points to help them to understand what your organisation is trying to do and to keep them engaged. You know, people often are very happy the moment that they decide to do something. Like if you purchase something for a few days, weeks, hours, depends on the person, but you do feel very positive about making that decision. But what you need to continue to do is to try and help them to still feel positive about the decision that they've made.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting one called buyer's remorse, right? That often, quite often, when people take these big decisions to invest in high ticket systems. Sometimes when I'm buying an expensive jacket and I come home and the missus goes, "Oh, that's a bit expensive," and immediately I'm filled with buyer's remorse. What do you think marketeers can do to avoid that? Is there something that we could be doing from an onboarding perspective, or is there something that brands could be doing on a consistent basis to mitigate and to reduce that buyer's remorse as much as possible?
Well, I think consumers like to feel positive about what they've done. So just reiterate the positives. And yes, there should be a sort of structured customer journey, not just from, the point of purchase. To me, it just feels like it makes complete sense that, getting the right mix of contact, but also not being overbearing in terms of the communications that you have. On one of your previous episodes, you had a guest that was explaining that they signed up for something, didn't really engage with it, and then realised they'd received like 100 emails in like 30 days or something like that. That's just really not the way to do it. It's not about being in your face. I think a good example would be, say, if you go to a restaurant and, the front of house will intervene at certain times just to check if you're okay and you're enjoying your meal, but you wouldn't want them to be coming over to you constantly every bite just to, is it still nice? Is it still nice? That's just not the way to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I get that at Nando's. In Nando's, when I've been to Nando's 1,000 times. I know what my order is. I don't need you coming up to me and asking. And every time they do, somehow I'm always got a face full of like chicken. And I'm like, of course it's nice. So I'm with you on that one completely.
Perhaps it's important for them to actually do that intervention then, so you can't really give any meaningful feedback. It's almost just a functionary, yes, it's okay, when you've sort of got a mouthful of chicken.
Well, it's interesting. They actually have, so when they greet you at the door, they give you that little pokey chicken thing, and they say, "Okay, you're at table number 23, great," and they stick the little wooden chicken in. And once they've checked on you afterwards, they take that out. And that's, I guess, their system to notify it. So I guess one's okay, but maybe I'm just so much of an evangelist of Nando's. They just get it right all the time. It's the South African in me that wants to support South African business as well. For those of you who don't know, Nando's is a South African business. But yeah, shout out the Saffers on that. So let's take a step back away from chicken and let's talk more about marketing, because that's what people are here to listen to. For those people who are listening to this podcast for the first time and they want to get a little bit of advice and a little bit of interest and a little bit of insight into your role, can you tell me maybe one shift in marketing that you think more people should be paying more attention to?
Sure, absolutely. One of the things that I'm keeping an eye on is the rise of AI in search. And I'm sure someone like yourself who's actually in the trade probably has an opinion on that too. But there was a recent piece of research released that 79% of traditional media outlets have seen their web traffic go down since places like Google have introduced an AI summary. So it's the first thing that you see, then sponsored links, and then the actual real things that you've been searching for. And it's resulting in people not clicking through and engaging with the content as it's meant to be included. Now, for media companies, obviously with online advertising, that's one of their main revenue streams. But I think everyone should be aware that the AI summaries could also affect your own business as well, just simply because AI isn't completely fallible, but also that if it's not the authentic message that you've initially put out there, it can be sort of distorted or changed. So some of the things that I've been reading about are, as well as making sure that everything that you produce on and content that you put out there in the world on the web is SEO friendly, it also has to be created in such a way that contextually, even if AI is scraping it, there's no chance of it actually misinterpreting what you've put out there.
Yeah, I think you make two really valid points there. I do feel a bit sorry for publishers and people who've invested loads and loads into creating content to just have their content essentially piggybacked and placed on Google's front page and then not get the necessary revenue from their hard work. I think that's a bit of a kick in the teeth. I can see why people like the Times are suing Google and are trying to put a case against them for sure. I think that ultimately the value in AI summaries is there, right? People aren't clicking through anymore. People are getting a lot of their answers answered, but you're right. Sometimes AI isn't all that, particularly yet. It's probably going to get better and it's probably going to get more accurate as things move on, but at the moment it is still fallible. I think the key things you mentioned there are accurate, making sure that any content that you do produce is not just a rehashed version of someone else's content. I had a prospect mention to me the other day, they said, in the past, I just used to copy my competitors' content, but now I can just put it into ChatGPT and ask it to write me a similar article. And I nearly wanted to claw out my eyes because that's just exactly not what to do, right? That's following the process to kill any SEO results. Ultimately, when it comes to AI search, there's a few key factors that need to be need more attention. The first is the trust signals that you offer to Google, which is EEAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Can you create a piece of content that, because of your native and first-hand experience, you can describe better than I can? For example, I will bet my bottom dollar that I can talk you through leg spin, a particular avenue of cricket or particular subsector of cricket, than most people in the world. And that means that I am positioned wonderfully to talk about the nuances of leg spin and the intricacies of it and the difficulties of internally rotating your shoulder when bowling a googly and those kinds of things that are important to very select amount of people. Furthermore, if you could write this article about leg spin, but you also included myself, a leg spin bowler for Ploughman's first team cricket, and including my author bio in there that references and has social media connections and demonstrating my expertise, you can see how this could be useful, right? If you get expert commentary from someone, or authorship is also a valuable use, but really ensuring that EEAT is clearly demonstrated throughout and ultimately going above and beyond just rehashing the content that your competitors are doing, but truly adding value, adding more real first party information rather than just third party stuff is what's really going to differentiate people in this AI world.
Definitely. I think the thing that you said about authenticity and authorship is something that I think everyone should be aware of and is something that they should strive for.
It's interesting, right? Did you see this fake influencer who turned up to Wimbledon?
No, I haven't heard about that.
So there's this woman this influencer who rocked up to Wimbledon. She's fake. She's completely, she doesn't exist. She's AI. But she got into news publications. There was references of her throughout. She was very popular on Instagram. She was being tagged by other people, and she just doesn't exist. She's just completely AI. And I think that we all talk about authenticity in marketing and how important it is to bring your true self in a world where AI is kind of bridging the gap on what is real and what isn't. How do marketeers ensure that they remain authentic?
That is one of the things that I do worry about myself. I think depending on how sophisticated your audience is the main thing that would be almost like your North Star, because you see things that are created maliciously and shared on social media and things like that. And I think where AI is so new, some people don't have the critical thinking skills to distinguish between what is real and what is fake. Just the other day we had a team meeting, and what we always do on our team meetings, like our sort of marketing and data team, Just as a thing that we have going on in the background, we have a quiz. So whoever's chairing the meeting that week sets the quiz. And it was our head of systems this time, and he just put up a quiz whereby could you spot an AI generated image or a genuine image. And it was surprising, all of us are sort of professionals in this field and have experience of these sorts of things, and in some cases do consult with AI regularly just for summarizing spreadsheets and things like that. But not everyone got full score, and it was just such a surprise. I mean, I got caught out by one. I didn't get a full score. I missed one, and it was an image, just a very standard image of a celebrity that exists, that could happily be shot, but for whatever reason it's generated by AI, and I just couldn't understand the reasoning behind it. But it is just so easy to get caught out, and yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think we'll necessarily be able to resolve on this podcast, but it is something that is, I think it's going to be a conundrum for years to come.
We'll give it a good go, though. We will try and see if we can solve the world's problem on this podcast, Martin. I'm happy to really dig into it. No, I hear where you're coming from. I think that what responsibility then do brands have? So is there a responsibility for brands to actually be more transparent in being really clear when they are using AI?
I mean, that would be ideal, but I think the thing is with a lot of consumers, and this goes from B2B, B2C, everywhere in between, a lot of people like to have a slight disassociation of where things come from. An analogy I would use is people don't want to know what's inside a sausage. They just want to eat a sausage. So there could be all manner of different nasties and different things going on behind the scenes, but people very rarely would look at the ingredients. They're just simply, this looks tasty, I'm going to engage with it, I'm going to eat it, consume it. So I don't necessarily think that organisations would, or they should be transparent, but I just don't think that they would necessarily engage with that in good faith, because it would only take one organisation of the whole sector to sort of break through and change that. Many years ago, I used to work in classified advertising for a large national newspaper, and what it did, they used to run sex lines on there. So my job for about 18 months was running the sex line section of a national newspaper, and it was very lucrative. This is going back like 25 years now. It was still worth, an advert that was sort of 3 centimetres by 3 centimetres would generate about £1 million worth of revenue a year, just being advertised every day. And running the section, it was like almost being like a school teacher. So what would happen is there was only 2 or 3 organisations that operated in this field that advertised on this scale. And we would run adverts for all of them, and almost on a daily basis I would get a call from one of these organisations that their competitor, part of what they had to do to adhere to appear in the newspaper was that the calls were not live. So what would happen is someone would phone up and it would be pre-recorded but driven by voice prompts.
Yeah.
Almost on a daily basis, I'd have a call from one organisation that the rival organisation was actually having live chat. So then I'd have to check it, tell them not to do it. Then the day after, it'd be the person that phoned in to make the complaint in a tit-for-tat gesture would then turn theirs on. It's just, I think in terms of trying to have that sort of level of trust between organisations where everyone is trying to get a competitive advantage, it would be very, very difficult to police.
So do you think then the old school marketing tactics might go back in fashion? I mean, I haven't got a cold call from someone in a while, but and I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everyone would go cold calling. Oh God, and then shivers would run down their spine. More inbound these days. We're taking a more full service approach, a more modern approach. But actually, thinking about it, do you think due to the rise in AI and people become more and more questioned, more and more standoffish to what they see online, and the mistrust increasing constantly, do you think that creates a bit of an opportunity for more of that old school, I want to say door-to-door cold calling marketing that is a bit more raw and definitely more authentic?
I think having something where you can clearly see that it's been touched by a human hand is something that I think will make a difference. But thinking about how our organisation operates, the social investment business, We're not like a bank or a traditional lender. So we have a couple of different products that we offer. So we do offer repayable finance, but it's at a fixed rate and it's, very comfortable for organisations. Doesn't mean they have to put their building on the line or things like that. But we also offer grant funding. But what we do, which I think is different from a traditional lender, is each person, organisation. Sorry, there's someone at the door. I do apologise.
No worries. Go for it. No, all good. Where were we? Remind me.
We were talking
about the authenticity of real person marketing. Okay, so let me take that up again. So in the world where we've got so much mistrust and maybe like the average Joe is a little bit more distrustful on what they see online, and with AI and deepfake coming in, people becoming more mistrustful or like they just don't really trust what they see online. Do you think that's going to create an opportunity for more of that old school IRL marketing? I'm thinking face-to-face, I'm thinking door knocking, I'm thinking cold calling. Do you think it creates a bit of an opportunity for us to kind of recycle back to the early 2000s again?
I think maybe retreading old techniques, not in just a straight reboot of them. I think they would need to be rethought even. But I think also putting things out there that you can definitely tell that a human hand has touched it will make a real difference. The way our organisation operates, we have generally two types of products that we have. One is repayable finance for charities and social enterprises. The other is targeted grant programs to get them investment ready. But either product that you apply for, unlike what I would assume a traditional bank or other lender would have, is each organisation that engages with us and successfully receives funding has a relationship manager that is almost like a friend calling in, checking how they're getting on. Is there any blockers to what they're trying to achieve with the funding? Is there any assistance that we can give them? And just it helps organisations it's a more friendly way to engage with customers, I think. Actually having a named person that checks in with you, sometimes it could be sort of fairly in-depth just at the point of, say, end of the financing or things like that, but just generally on a sort of month-to-month basis, how's things going? Is there anything that you need? Just stuff like that, I think, makes a real difference.
The Nando's check-in, going full circle.
Would you like to?
No, I like it. And so tell me, like, for those younger audience members who are listening in that are maybe at the early stage of their marketing, if you could speak to Martin many years ago when he's just starting his career and you could whisper some advice into Martin's younger ear, what would you tell him?
What I would tell a younger Martin, firstly, not to get tattoos, but also I would probably say to him that in terms of marketing, it is a meeting of art and science. There's the creative side of it, which I think draws a lot of people initially towards a marketing career, but also there's always underlying data and insight to glean from that. Don't be too precious to the things that you create, because the amount of times, certainly when I was younger, I would try and create things and possibly they were just like overly complicated, and I've almost applied too much thought to them, created something that I'm fully in love with, and then it disintegrates in contact with air. The moment it gets put out there, people don't engage with it for whatever reason, and I would be, sometimes be quite disheartened with something that I've worked on for like weeks, months, and then when it gets put to the general public in the court of public opinion, it totally fails. So have one eye on the creative side of things, but also have another eye on the underlying data. Working in marketing, particularly digital marketing, you're very fortunate to get almost like an instant exit poll of how your thing's performing. Be acutely aware of what the insights are and what they can give you, and act upon that, whether it's a case of something needs just a little bit of tweaking to make it more effective, or whether it's a complete root and branch, complete reshape of what you're doing.
Yeah, nice. I really like that. I think that balance between art and science is particularly relevant, and I think a lot of people, as you say, kind of join for the art and and get better at the science as they go along. And I think you're absolutely right, making sure that, especially if you're leading a team of junior marketeers, making sure that you recognize that and you allow that creative elements of them to really express themselves, but also make sure that they're targeted on the right things and that ultimately they know why they're being creative. One element that's incredibly pertinent to this podcast, The Wise Build Bridges, is about helping brands to kind of stay ahead in quite crowded niches. In that kind of similar space, in the finance space, there's a number of avenues that people can go to secure finance. Yes, you are targeted specifically on that kind of social enterprise level, which I think adds an interesting dynamic. But I wondered if you had any advice to someone trying to build visibility in a crowded niche.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, where we're one of the largest and oldest social investors, oftentimes the challenge of getting our message across is just that social investment isn't like lending from a bank. It's a much more friendly and supportive product. But I would say for the other side of what we do, where we have been around for such a long time, understandably, we do have opinions. We do have experience of things, and we're not afraid to speak out about, we want to influence policy at sort of government level. We can help deliver things in the right kind of way. We have sort of a long-standing impact assessments and so on that we can really evidence where things would work. And that's, I would say, using that is the most important thing. I would say don't be afraid of being polarizing. Have an opinion on something. You can provoke a reaction, and that, I think that is the most important thing. Be provocative. Whether it's a strong like or a strong dislike, you've already created a reaction in people whereby if you're saying the sort of things that they want to hear, they will engage with you more positively and allow you more time to actually fully expand your message. If you're saying things that people don't like, they'll switch off, and it means that you're not wasting your time, they're not wasting their time. I think the place that you don't want to be is just squarely in the middle, trying to be all things to all people, bang average. You think, I don't know, I'm trying to think, what's your favourite band, Dure?
Probably Ezra Collective.
Okay, and why do you like them?
Because when I listen to them, I can't stop dancing. My legs just automatically start moving about.
And what's your least favourite band?
My least favourite band be one of the ones my dad drags me to that I can't even think of them. I don't really. I guess there's maybe one or two I can think of that I've seen recently at a festival with my dad. I didn't enjoy the music that much. It was just too attention heavy.
Well, that's the thing. It didn't speak to you, so you didn't really positively engage with it. And I think festivals are a good example where there's bound to be bands that you really want to see, bands that you really. I'll proactively move away from the stage that I'm at to see them. Yeah. And then there are other bands that are just filler. That are just like, I wouldn't turn this off, but I wouldn't buy a CD, I wouldn't stream them, I wouldn't do anything with them. So the idea is that you have to either be one or the other, not in the middle. I think that's probably what I would suggest the way brands should approach things. Actually, don't be afraid to have an opinion on things, to actually put your viewpoint out there. And, in certain respects, there might be particular brands, like if you're thinking about, for you work in online retail, that it's difficult to actually get that opinion across. But if you curate the collections, if you was to, I don't know, your visual merchandising is done in a particular kind of way, it will appeal to a certain type of audience. Whereas for other people, if you've just got it on a stark white background, sure, you get to see the product, but it doesn't really say much of how you would style the product, how you'd accessorize the product, So don't be afraid to actually make it a bit more real, a bit more authentic, a bit more about you, a bit more reflective of who you are as an organization or an individual.
I think that's important you can't just kind of make that up, right? You can't just kind of slap that on an A4 document and say, okay, here's where we go. I think you have to really dig deep into understand what your organization is there to do and what values you have as a business and an organization. And if those values then are consistently demonstrated and are consistently spoken about, then you can shout about the things that actually matter to you. And then you can start speaking the customer's language in a way that they understand. For example, in my world, lifetime value, average order value, these are particular metrics that maybe a lot of SEOs might not really look at that much because they're so interested in that first contact point and go, yes, we got 17 inquiries. that marries up with our retainer. Great, let's send them another invoice, as opposed to ourselves, which is kind of reconsidering what value each individual consumer has and what's the profits on that consumer as well. So I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of making sure that in order to be a bit different and in order to speak the right language, we need to, one, talk to the right audience and really understand them well, but also not just sit in the middle and really do have an opinion on or a hot take that people can and disagree with and people can agree with. Martin, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Before I love and leave you, I want one hot take that someone can completely disagree with you or someone can completely agree with you, something a little bit polarizing for the audience. What's your hot take as I leave you today?
I might need a second on this one.
You're good. Take your time. I can rephrase it as well once you have it.
Yeah, fine. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
What sort of direction would you like it in?
Either a statement like Google's not going to win forever, something like that, where it's like AI is coming into play, or something like specific in terms of what it is that you're doing. Like, I'm noticing from the data that Facebook marketing is actually making a comeback, or influencer marketing is dead because of these fake influencers. Something that people can be like, he said what? It's just something like that.
All right, bear with me.
No worries, take your time.
I'm just thinking, because where we do operate in a sort of quite political space, that just some of those sort of things, it's like I can't really, well, I shouldn't really, hot take in terms of the marketing space. Okay.
Yeah? Ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay. And Martin, one final question before we love and leave you. What is your hot take? What is something that people can agree or disagree with you on in terms of marketing and the way that the world is headed forward?
I would say that Google Ads is kind of in the sense that results appear beneath the AI summaries. And I think things like SEO will have a greater level of importance in terms of relevance, in terms of getting people's attention.
Well, there it is. PPC is dead for now. Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, for sharing your learnings, and for continually to make the world a better place. Please continue what you do at the social investment business. And it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And please continue to do your bit to make the world a more equal society. For those that want to ask you a question, for those that found this conversation interesting, or for those that want to maybe kind of get in touch with you, what's the best way in which they can do that, please?
I'm fairly visible on LinkedIn. I have a name that's not particularly that common. So just look for a sort of greying bald man, and chances are you're at the right place.
And I, for one, think your tattoos are brilliant. Martin, it's been a pleasure having you on the Wiseball Bridges. Thank you ever so much. Cheers for now.
Thanks, Dure. Take care.